I guess just an element of excitement. I mean, certainly one of the things that I missed being over here is really the experience of staying up and getting quite excited, even at home, about the progress of the release of the election figures.
Yes, it's a myth to think that the British are phlegmatic and unemotional.
Just wait till we get at one another's throats later.
More than that, the economy was going into deeper and deeper recession. Unemployment was rising. The working people were getting restive. Among other things, the state reached for the weapon of racism. And by 1962, the first in a series of immigration acts was passed. Now, from that point on, a new pattern was set in British politics.
You know, the crime or violence in the UK.
When I came here, it was a clean sheet. No one knew me. No one knows my history. They have people that look like you going after you. You know what I mean? Okay. People that look like you, that's the people you have to watch out for. People that are dressed like you. You're not worried about anyone else.
Again here, the ill feeling, of course, was spawned as a result of this act in which West Indians felt that they had now become second-class citizens. The open-door policy had been reversed. What is important to recognize now, it's not so much their feeling directed against the act as such, because they're responsible, the act is law, they're fighting to repeal it, but the consequences of the act.
The issue of immigration and immigrants came to be used quite deliberately by the state, whipping up racism and confusing the working class.
Namely, the fact that the population at large, because of the whole propaganda against the West Indians, regard them as second-class citizens.
So that despite the fact that immigration has been effectively stopped, and despite the fact that we've proved our worth to the economy,
and they themselves, on the job, in virtually every sphere of life, find this difficulty since the Immigration Act in terms of discrimination, colour bar housing, etc., etc.
We are still the target of a very mischievous and hypocritical debate about our presence here, our right to be here.
How are you going to get it? Do you want the easy way or the hard way? Everyone goes for the easy way. Selling drugs and robbing people, not working 9 to 5. People don't want their friends seeing them stacking shelves. No matter how many Louis V belts or whatnot you got, if you're stacking shelves, you're just going to be known as, oh, that guy that works a 9 to 5.
Which I know very well, so I've lived in London most of my grown-up life.
And I think he just continues to incite hatred and prejudice, and I think he should apologise.
This is a journey into a lunatic asylum.
Magna Carta, democracy, the agrarian industrial revolutions, the uniting of our kingdom, free trade, the abolition of slavery, emancipation, the defeat of Hitler and fascism, freedom of speech and plurality of media, and in recent days, thank goodness, race relations and equal opportunities. The constitution of our country consists of waves of people coming and going over millennia.
These things are kind of irrelevant. What people tend to think about is what they see you doing in their community, not down in Parliament Square or whatever, what they see you doing in their community. And that's something that we need to be doing.
So when I questioned why the equity statement couldn't represent all students, they told me that to even ask that question was outlandish and offensive. And when I asked why that was, they told me, quote, whites have a pretty good situation right now, unquote.
And there was certainly a distinction between average people and gentlemen, but the contrast between governors and farmers was nowhere near the extreme contrast between a member of the entrenched British nobility and a landless commoner. So in America, the spectrum, it's like the top and the bottom of that spectrum have been sort of lopped off. And what's in between is a little bit more pliable.
That's why they are drinking.
The cinema is part of Pakistani social life which is confined to men. In fact, there are only 600 women out of the 12,000 Pakistanis in Bradford. Most girls on reaching puberty and all women are secluded from men except their relatives. This custom of keeping women apart is called purdah. The wife of this cafe proprietor is an Ahmadiyya. Because she belongs to this sect, she never leaves her home without her face being covered by a veil, called a burqa.
What? Do you do things, I'm asking about the difference in religion. You believe that there is a heaven and a hell, and I'm asking, can one have a religious philosophy without believing in a heaven and a hell?
I think you can. I personally believe in a heaven or a hell, and I would like to raise a point here among good and bad, since you're talking about it. Should a person choose what's good and bad, or choose between the things society and religion decreed as good and bad?
Man instinctively protects himself against the truth by raising a cloud of numbers. While conformity and the playing out of social roles can help shore up our bridges of self-deception, this may in the end turn out to be more of a curse than a blessing.
And I'm staggered by how many intelligent people seem to have bought into this argument. Characteristics cannot be taken in isolation. You have to control for variables.
The Negro does not need a home. He can sleep under a tree. Well, not only is this absolutely fictitious, but he forgot to mention the fact that brick and concrete trees, known to most people as houses, are costing thousands, millions of dollars of the white taxpayers' money annually.
What did you say? I didn't get the point. Said what houses?
Could we leave the history a little bit and come back to present-day prejudices? You were saying that you were prejudiced against the Japanese, I think, Dennis.
According to the Japanese ministry, this process can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. However, those who have gone through it have said it can take years. Interestingly, the process to obtain permanent residency, but not citizenship, is even longer. This is because permanent residents receive all the benefits of citizenship without being required to swear allegiance to the Constitution of Japan or renounce their other citizenships.
We shouldn't even be living like this. We shouldn't be living in this fear. And every time I've said to them, I'm scared, I'm having nightmares, you know, I worry, because it's not my flat. I can try and protect my flat as much as I can. But, you know, other people, they might not even be there and they might be having a gas explosion, and the same thing can happen to all of us.
The reason they've been successful is because of hard work, and they worked hard for what they have achieved so far.
The reason of our success in this country is the experience. The Ugandan Asians, most of them were business people, and they had a lot of experience of the foreign countries, especially Britain, France, Germany.
Do you have any country you don't like?
No, I like all countries.
No, I'm pretty good. You like everyone? I try. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Its objectives were truth, accountability, and justice. The minute you start to be vile and degrading, then you're going against the very objectives of freedom of speech.
Who haven't delivered the goods, who have neglected the estates, that they've turned to the National Front to find some scapegoat for the cause of their problems on the estate.
Here, phone an ambulance for her. She don't need one. Come round after 2 minutes.
So people objecting to this is quite bizarre for me, because, you know, again I repeat, in the liberal Western democracies, why is this such a big issue? Unless the reason behind it is that there's actually fear of the other. There's a suspicion. You know, they actually do believe that there's something in Islam that leads to radicalism and to extremism and to terrorism.
We wear dark clothes, trousers, no skirts, no obvious makeup. Red lipstick is out of the question. We erase ourselves, try to be the most discreet possible. Why? Because we're scared, simple as that.
Humans are imperfect beings. Each one of us is flawed in a diverse number of ways. We make countless mistakes, are unsuccessful in many of our endeavors, and are victims of numerous bad habits. Yet despite all this, we have a basic need to think well of ourselves. We want to believe that we are good people and that the path in life we have chosen is a noble one. The easiest way to reconcile our need for a positive self-image with the existence of our many flaws and shortcomings is through hiding our defects, both from ourselves as well as others. In this pursuit, we are often far more successful in deceiving ourselves than we are at hiding our flaws from those close to us.
Another teenage steward, Kyle Lawler, who walked away unconcerned after being warned about the bomber. The company which employed them, Shosek, has been heavily criticised. Failings include inadequacies in its training.
Now, of course it's true that empires begin in the interest of their colonial founders. The crass assumption that all that's subsequently done in their imperial names is exclusively wicked is as stupid as it is simplistic. In the words of the former chairman of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, Trevor Phillips, the woke ultras who want to wipe away all symbols of British imperialism don't speak for the families who lived under the empire.
40 or 50 years ago, almost all the terrorism in the United Kingdom was carried out by Irish people. This, of course, tells us nothing about Irish people per se. It rather says something about the cause for which men and women at that time were prepared to fire guns and plant bombs. Today, almost all terrorism in Britain is carried out by Muslims. Again, this tells us nothing at all about Muslims or Islam, but rather it gives us an insight into the particular cause for which people are willing to plant bombs, stab people or run over pedestrians. These acts are conducted by Islamists, people who believe that it is not enough to see Islam as a religious faith, but that it should also be the political system and government of all countries.
And unfortunately, I repeat again, there are certain Western leaders who believe this.
Right. You are speaking about Islam writ large, of course, but as you know, it is very diverse. There are many different groups of Muslims in the world.
And this is the main street in Knightsbridge, the richest, most exclusive area in London. These individuals are angry that people would criticise or get annoyed at Islam because people shouting Allah Akbar, carrying it out. So it's all about Muhammad, demonstrating angry at Islamophobia. Not, of course, commenting on the 4 French individuals who've lost their lives, who've been attacked with people shouting Allah Akbar, the French teacher and the 3 in Nice in Notre Dame Cathedral. So this is London on Friday, the 30th of October, outside the French Embassy at the Muslim demonstration against the French.
I mean, I have been working with Somali parents for a very long time, and lots of them have no clue what their sons are up to. They have no idea, and they actually think their sons are doing really quite good, some of them, until then the day after they find out their son is killed, their son is in prison, their son is dealing drugs. I mean, that's a massive, and as a Somali community, to be honest and to be fair, we are the forgotten people, completely.
That's when you got rigid orders, no talking whatsoever, keep your head down, single file, no smoking. The captain would then direct you right to the front trenches.
Does he not accept that there are different perspectives when it comes to the empire and our role in it? There are different, and should those different perspectives be discussed in education? Should we be told about them, or should we just have the one perspective that we have now?
It was hardly Frost Nixon, was it?
The only power we have in this country, in a democratic free country, is the power we draw from the ballot.
More like watching a monkey throw his own excrement at a foghorn. Now, hear that applause? Is it supposed to be funny? That's what the critics say. No, it isn't. I'm not interested in laughs. Was it funny? No, but I agreed the fuck out of it.
Childish,
shall we say.
Thank you very much, caller.
Well, the Democratic Socialists of America doesn't have the resources to run in election campaigns.
So I live in Birmingham, and if Birmingham City Council takes a genuine look at what school places are available, what housing is available, looks wholesale at where we could fit in more, and we all tightened our belts a bit and did it, we could take a certain number, and that number needs to feed in. I bet there aren't any living in Whitney. No, they are.
Well, they're in more...
They're in terrible danger. You don't push
the
the pull factor is that they are scared.
The simple fact is we don't know the numbers. As Angus said, you know, it was 1 million last year. There's still 12, I think something like 12 million displaced in Syria alone. So we will be co-hosting next week in London along with the Germans and the Norwegians.
But you're right in saying that a number of board members of the AFL-CIO and a number of members of Congress, including quite a number of members of the Black Caucus, for example, will come to a DSA convention or will endorse a DSA motion for debate at the Democratic Convention. What the DSA says it's like is like the Labour Party was in Britain about 70 years ago. That's to say, the Labour wing of the Liberal Party.
Okay, so you meet the guy, there's marriage in the offing, and he says, by the way, of course, the deal here is you have to obey me. Is that okay with you?
If the husband is saying obey in the context of asking me to do things that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then by all means, because ultimately my faith teaches me that, and teaches many Muslims, that ultimately our duty is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, God.
At another level, we've seen politicians stepping up the use of racism to break up that resistance.
Women should always obey their husbands, compared with only 5% of non-Muslim Britons. And once again, except for the over 65s, there's no particular difference between age groups.
Is like the Labour Party was in Britain about 70 years ago. That's to say, the Labour wing of the Liberal Party.
It is acceptable for a British Muslim to keep more than one wife.
I strongly agree.
In Islam, a man has the right to have up to 4 wives. In British law, polygamy is illegal.
Now, the crudest extension of this policy is seen in the rise of the fascist party, the National Front.
Well, I've got a few bits and pieces of Nazi memorabilia, badges, bits and pieces of army stuff. That's not actually terrorism to... Call me old-fashioned, but I rather hope that the soldiers charged with defending this realm are patriotic.
We've got to get rid of the pigs! The pigs! The pigs! We've got to get rid of the pigs!
And that did the trick. Born of a medieval tribe of assassins, and with a spy system that has a touch of magic about it, the Hers are now under lock and key. So fact is stranger than fiction after all.
And the key word that comes back from there is desperation. And these people are desperate to get to the UK because of what we're offering them. And we're offering them very good things, and they need that. But I think that point's correct. Is that helping them? Is that the best way to help them? Because their desperation is putting them in these horrible situations where they're fighting for their lives just to get across an ocean, when really, and I'd ask the panel, what can we do to improve their lives where they're coming from?
About a year ago, the infamous globalist hegemon, George Soros, admitted to divesting some $18 billion of net worth into a number of his NGO platforms, and in particular, the Open Society Foundation, which is the umbrella entity or Politburo that operates hundreds of globalizing progressive organizations that now encircle the planet.
It is a great honor for me that the citizens of Finchley, have returned me once again to represent them. The only power we have in this country, in a democratic free country, is the power we draw from the ballot.
if you want to change something, you have to be a part of something. You have to get involved, you have to educate yourself on it, and you have to make a change from inside. It's all good and well having opinions saying no one listens, but if you're not there to be listened to, who's going to listen?
During the war, I rested my trust in the British people. Time after time, I warned them of the dangers ahead.
Today, it's on the estates, huge conglomeration of estates all over East London, where we've never heard the word racialism.